This week we are going to do something I like to call the animation style swap challenge. This means I'm going to try and draw my original superhero characters in the style of 3 different very iconic animation styles that are not my own. In fact, they're not even close. Let's see how this turns out. Hello, super friends, and welcome back to another episode of Superhero Saturday, where we talk about the arts of superheroes, storytelling, and so much more. My name is Annie, and yes, I went back to my old backdrop. What can I say? I'm a creature of habit, and the other one was too dark. I like the bright yellow. If you were around for those few weeks that I did have that other backdrop here, go ahead and put down in the comments below the word Toontown, because that's kind of what it looked like. As you guys know, a couple weeks ago, I bought myself a Huion Canvas Pro 16, which is a type of drawing pad, a digital drawing pad, that allows you to draw directly onto the screen and like do all sorts of cool artsy things with it. And I had a little bit of trouble getting started because it's a whole new suite of programs and features and preferences and all sorts of things. It was just a lot to kind of take in and practice. But I did practice. So as you can see on the screen here, I did do some work and I'm finally kind of at the point where I know what I'm doing and I feel comfortable doing it and I'm able to draw to basically the extent of my capabilities. Now the image that you see on the screen here is of two of my superhero characters, Cannonball Cooper and Haley Hendricks, and I would show you the time lapse of that drawing, but even though my mom asked me if I was going to record it, I said no. And so I kept doodling around and thinking that I was just doing stuff that wasn't really worth watching, but then I ended up with something that came out really good, and I was so bummed that I didn't get the footage. So moral of the story, listen to your mom. But I think we've finally got it set up properly. So this week what we're going to do is we're going to draw my superhero characters in different animation styles. This is not a new drawing type challenge. I've actually seen this all over the internet for many years now, and I've always wanted to do it myself because it looks like so much fun. It's such a unique and interesting, challenge and kind of tool for practicing your drawing skills, to be able to practice getting yourself out of your own comfort zone and trying to take on a different style that's not your own. I think that's totally interesting. Animators do this all the time because if you get hired as an animator, you're supposed to match the style of the project that you're working on. So, not that I actually want to be an animator because that seems really tough. I thought it would be cool to go ahead and try this challenge for myself. So we're going to draw 3 of my superhero characters. We're going to draw Cannonball Cooper, Haley Hendricks, and Kara Kostopoulos. Let's get started, super friends. The first animation style that I wanted to try was Teen Titans, the original Teen Titans, not Teen Titans Go, that came out on Cartoon Network in the early 2000s. Now, part of the reason I chose this style of animation is because it's a fair amount outside of my comfort zone, but it's still superheroic based. Like, the show is all about superheroes, so I thought that would be a good match with my characters. As you guys know, I've said multiple times on this channel, I'm a huge fan of the DC animated universe that was on television in the early 2000s, but mostly I was a fan of the Justice League Unlimited, Static Shock, and all of those type of shows. But because they're so close and so influential for my own style, I thought I would do something a little bit more daring and a little bit more that would push me out of my zone. I really have not practiced this style very much, so it was a really big challenge. I had to look up a ton of reference pictures and spend a lot of time studying different characters from the show to kind of get a feel for the different shapes and the different style and the different line work that goes into the Teen Titans. It's also a really interesting animation style in that it's almost American animation style and almost anime. I've seen animes before and this isn't totally Japanese style animation, but it does have a really strong influence. And I haven't really worked on Japanese animation styles since I was probably in middle school. So this was a fair stretch for me. For Cannonball Cooper, I kind of tried to pull some elements from the character Cyborg with the face shape and all of like the eyes and the body shape, the physique for him, but it didn't quite transfer over because he's quite a bit different in shape than Cyborg. For Haley, it was hard to find any kind of character with a lot of bangs that I could tell, so I kind of just went with what I had, and it kind of slipped into some other animation styles, I think, for this one, but it works. And then for Kara Kostopoulos, I definitely pulled from the character Starfire for her bangs and for her like peppy attitude. A different animation style that I have practiced before but didn't do for this video was Ben 10. And you can kind of see the influence here. They are actually remarkably similar, although Ben 10 is a lot more Americanized than anime-ized, if that's a phrase. So you can kind of see the similarities in the end, especially with the hair coloring shine that is very typical of Teen Titans and Ben 10. And then also kind of the shapes and styles. I didn't have as much of the line style down for Teen Titans. I think it would take a lot more practice to really nail it, but in the end, I really think it turned out well. And I showed my mom, and she is not a fan of these shows. She's just kind of seen me watch them before, and she was able to identify that they were Teen Titans style. So that made me feel like it was a success. For the second part of my animation swap challenge, I decided to go with an American classic, which is on pretty much every one of these challenges that I could find on the internet, and that was to go with Matt Groening's style, which is featured in The Simpsons and Futurama, and I want to say a couple other shows that I don't remember and I haven't watched. This one was actually surprisingly easy to figure out. It did not take very long because, as you know, if you've seen any even clips of the show, or if you've watched the shows themselves, you can see that a lot of the construction is based in circular shapes and like bean shapes. So it wasn't really hard to get kind of the gist of it, especially since the eyeballs are so big, and apparently not a lot of Simpsons characters have eyebrows. That kind of threw me for a loop. I never realized that until I started drawing it. As for coloration, I decided to steer away from the classic Simpsons yellow because it is iconic, but it's problematic, especially with people of varying skin tones, and my characters do have pretty different skin tones, so I wanted to make sure to reflect that without making it stand out too much. Plus, Haley has yellow hair anyway, so I didn't want to go with the whole, Lisa and Bart Simpson where their hair is not delineated from their forehead. Another thing that really threw me for a loop was the characters' chins and mouth area. It's a very different and not realistic style of animation to have the jawline in so far from, the mouth and the nose and everything. So I really struggled with this one for a while on that, but I think in the end it turned out okay. For Cannonball Cooper's character, I drew a lot of influence from the Duff Beer guy, because he was the character that I remembered most that had a really, strong physique, bulky, muscle buildy type shape. And then, a little bit of, classic Simpsons characters like Homer with the eyes and stuff, and then different characters with the hair. For Haley, it was actually relatively easy to figure out once I got some of the basic shapes down. I hadn't seen a lot of characters with ponytails in the show, but once I got a feel for the shapes of the lines and, the curves and the straights, it was pretty straightforward, so I went ahead and put that together pretty much no problem. Kara, I struggled with a ton, and I don't know what it was. I think I maybe was focusing too much on the chins at this point, and I started constructing the face not from the eyes down, but from the chin up, and I think that totally threw things off. Also, I tend to draw Kara with different outfits every time I draw her. Like, I haven't gotten a standardized outfit for her like I have with the other two characters. So I tried to draw something a little bit different, and it did not work out very well. So I actually came back and fixed it later on so that it was just consistent across the board with the pink t-shirt and the green mini skirt, or skirt, I guess, and her usual hair and triangle-shaped earrings. This was actually a really fun experiment because I haven't practiced drawing this style of animation, like, basically at all, and I felt like I was able to more or less get a feel for it relatively quickly, so it was very satisfying in that aspect. And I think the end product came out looking definitely like my characters, but also definitely like Matt Groening's artistic style combined. And finally, for my last animation style swap challenge, I decided to go with something that is truly iconic and very influential in my own personal style and a beloved favorite. And that is the style of Butch Hartman, who is the creator and a main artist for shows like The Fairly Odd Parents, Danny Phantom, and Tough Puppy. I haven't actually seen, I think, any of Tough Puppy, and I've seen a number of Fairly Odd Parents when they first came out on Nickelodeon, but one of my favorite shows of all time is Danny Phantom. So I even have a shirt that I decided to wear that matches for this challenge, so that was super cool. And for this one, I definitely have practiced the style quite a bit, so I'm really comfortable with this, and I totally love the end product. I could probably refine it a little bit more with practice, but it came pretty straightforward to me because I'm so familiar with the show and I've tried to do little fan comics of that. This animation style is pretty far away from my usual style because I tried to go with semi-realistic, I would say, American animation, whereas this is highly stylized in a true cartoon. So the lines are very strong and they're very angular and curvy in a way that is pretty consistent. And in my personal opinion, it's really easy to recognize because it's a style that has been used and solidified over so many years. For Cannonball Cooper, I decided that he was definitely a different physique than Danny Phantom, so I pulled a lot more influence from Dash for his facial shape and his body shape and all of that kind of thing. For Haley Hendricks, I did a little bit of Jazz, who is Danny's sister. And for Kara Kostopoulos, I actually pulled the bangs, I think, from like the mom and maybe some from the Fairly Odd Parents, I think. I couldn't remember which character I had seen this type of bangs on, but I recognized it and I knew that I could get that style to work pretty easily. By this time, I really wanted to keep that consistent outfit for Kara Kostopoulos, so I stuck with the pink t-shirt and the green skirt. And that actually made things a lot easier because this animation style is a lot more simplistic than the other ones, and very much more simplistic and almost two-dimensional than Teen Titans, which is very stylized in long shapes and lines and curving and almost Japanese style animation. Again, this was definitely the most fun that I've had with not only with this style challenge, but with my computer software and the Huion tablet as well, because it totally felt like it was working out. The brush that I've been using for the sketching was able to give me that flexibility of lightness and quick speed to kind of plow through this relatively quickly and then put the lines on top no problem. I think this one actually took the least amount of time out of the three to kind of narrow down and get colorized. And just because it's one of my favorite shows, I had a good time trying to mimic that style. And there you have it, 3 of my original superhero characters drawn in 3 very different animation styles from my own. It was a super fun challenge and I kind of want to do this again sometime if I can figure out a couple of different styles that might be manageable. I was thinking maybe Disney, maybe I could find a Ben 10 style that I could give a shot, and then, I don't know, something else. If you have another favorite animation style that maybe I could try to do this challenge with again, go ahead and pop those down in the comments below and maybe we'll do another one. And thank you so much for watching, Super Friends. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more superheroic and artistic content every single Saturday. You can also join the team by following us on social media and supporting us on Patreon. And if you want to see my original characters in action in their own animation style, go on over to our website at www.fearless9.com where you can check out some of the story, get some books, and maybe find your new favorite superhero characters. Thanks again for watching, Super Friends, and we'll see you next week.